All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling a classic, Echo and Narcissus.
Oh, yeah, a real classic.
We've got our trusty Ovid, Metamorphoses, of course,
Always a good starting point.
and some stuff from the Metamorphoses project. That website is a treasure trove, by the way.
Yeah, really helps put things in context.
And to bring it all home, we've got this Psych Central article.
Oh, yeah, the one connecting the myth to narcissism today.
Exactly. So we're going from ancient myth to modern psychology. Should be fun.
It always is when these old stories still resonate.
Right. Okay, so Ovid first, just to set the scene.
Lay it on me.
We've got Echo, the nymph, can't speak for herself, just repeats what she hears.
Juno's curse, right?
Yep. And then there's Narcissus, handsome as can be, but totally in love with himself.
Well, that's putting it lightly.
True, true. More like incapable of loving anyone but himself.
And Ovid really drives that home with the dramatic irony.
Oh, totally. Like he's searching for something he can't find because he doesn't even know himself.
Yeah, it's almost tragic if he wasn't so darn cruel.
And that's where Echo comes in, right? She's smitten with him.
Big time.
But when she tries to approach him, he just rejects her.
Heartlessly.
It's brutal. What do you make of how Ovid portrays Echo's punishment? Like, is it just about her chattering?
Well, the thing is, a lot of scholars think Ovid actually invented Echo's role in this myth.
Wow, really?
Yeah, like in earlier versions, Narcissus was just obsessed with himself, no Echo involved.
Huh. So what does that tell us about Ovid's take?
I think he's making it a story about dual punishment.
Maybe.
Narcissus gets his for being vain, obviously,
Right.
but he's also punished for how he treats Echo.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about self-obsession, but also about the ripple effect, how we treat others.
Exactly. Adds a whole other layer, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Now, this is where the Metamorphoses project gets wild.
Uh-oh, lay it on me.
They mention this guy, Pausanias, ancient Greek writer,
Okay.
and he basically says, nah, I don't buy the whole reflection thing.
But this not falling in love with his own image.
Nope. Pausanias claims Narcissus was actually pining for his twin sister.
Whoa, hold on, twin sister. Where'd that come from?
That's Pausanias' version. She dies, and he's so grief-stricken that.
He becomes obsessed with her memory, mistaking it for his own.
Something like that. It's like Pausanias is searching for a more, I don't know, rational explanation.
Yeah, like maybe grief is more understandable than falling in love with your reflection.
Right. But it still boils down to this intense self-focus, whether on the self or a lost twin.
That's true. The fixation is still there, just a different target.
It makes you wonder how much of this myth-making was also people trying to make sense of, like, human behavior.
Absolutely. Trying to find explanations for the extremes we're capable of.
Okay, so fast forward a couple thousand years.
Mm-hmm.
We've got that Psych Central article.
Bringing us into the present.
Right. And they're connecting the myths to, well, narcissism as we understand it today.
Which is fascinating because now we've got, like, clinical criteria and all that.
Yep. They even bring up the DSM-5, you know, the big psychology manual.
Oh, yeah, with all the criteria for personality disorders.
Right. So they're talking about grandiosity, needing admiration, lack of empathy,
Mm-hmm.
all very narcissistic.
But of course, gotta remember, Narcissus is a fictional character.
Good point. We can't actually diagnose him. Haha.
Right. It's more like the myth provides this framework.
Yeah, like a way of understanding these patterns, not labeling people.
Exactly. It's about seeing the echoes of those behaviors. No pun intended.
Haha. Nice one. But speaking of echoes, I mean, we're focusing so much on Narcissus.
True.
But Echo kind of gets the short end of the stick, doesn't she?
She does. And that's where it gets even more interesting psychologically.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So Psych Central mentions this concept called echoism.
Echoism. Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's not an official clinical term or anything,
Okay.
but it describes this pattern of like being super passive, always people-pleasing.
Almost like fading into the background.
Exactly. And often it's tied to codependency, being overly reliant on others for your sense of self.
So are we saying Echo is like the poster child for codependency?
Not exactly poster child, but her story definitely resonates with those dynamics.
Makes sense. She literally can't speak for herself.
Right. It's almost like a metaphor for how some people lose their own voice in relationships.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I see that.
It's about recognizing those patterns, you know?
Right.
Both the Narcissus and the Echo sides.
And hopefully finding healthier ways to relate to ourselves and others.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This is wild. We went from ancient poetry to modern psychology in like 10 minutes.
That's the power of myth, baby.
I know, right? It's like these stories tap into something timeless about human nature.
Something we're still grappling with today.
Absolutely. And we've only scratched the surface.
Oh, there's so much more to unpack here.
Well, let's pause here for now and let this all sink in. We'll be back soon to dive even deeper.
Can't wait.
Okay, welcome back. So we've got Ovid's version, we've got the psychology angle.
Layered stuff.
But one thing that always strikes me is how much this myth pops up in, like, art and literature.
Oh, yeah, constantly. It's like painters, poets, they can't resist Echo and Narcissus.
Makes sense, right? Unrequited love, vanity, the search for identity.
Timeless stuff.
Totally. The Metamorphoses Project website, they even mentioned this painting.
Oh, yeah. By who?
Waterhouse, John William Waterhouse, Echo and Narcissus. Pretty famous.
I think I've seen it. Isn't Echo kind of fading into the background?
Yeah. And Narcissus is just totally fixated on his reflection.
Perfect visual, right. Echo literally becoming less as he becomes more self-absorbed.
It is. And speaking visuals, you can't forget the Narcissus flower itself, right?
Ah, yes. Symbolism galore.
Right. Like delicate beauty, but it droops downward, almost like...
A reminder of his fate.
Yeah.
That beauty fades and vanity leads to, well...
nothingness.
Pretty much. He's so obsessed with his image that he wastes away, just like the flower wilts.
It's such a potent image. And it kind of brings me back to what you were saying about echoism.
Oh, yeah, the flip side of the coin.
If Narcissus is all about self-focus, Echo is.
Losing yourself in someone else.
Right. What do you think would happen if Echo, like, went to therapy today?
Ooh, interesting question. I think she'd really struggle with boundaries.
Yeah, like setting limits, saying no.
Totally. And expressing her needs, she'd probably find that super tough.
She'd be so used to just adapting,
Yeah.
echoing what other people want.
Exactly. Almost like she's afraid of having her own wants.
So in a way, both Echo and Narcissus are kind of trapped, right?
That's the tragedy. One by self-obsession, the other by self-effacement.
But is there any hope? Like, does the myth offer any way out of this?
Well, now that's the interesting part. There's this glimmer of transformation, even in their downfall.
Oh, how so?
Think about Narcissus. He dies, right? Trapped in that loop of self-admiration and self-loathing.
Yeah, pretty bleak.
But his death gives rise to the flower.
So from that self-obsession comes something beautiful.
Right. And Echo, she might lose her physical form, but her voice.
It echoes on.
Exactly. It becomes part of the landscape, like this lingering presence.
So even though they're kind of messed up, they leave something behind.
Yeah. It's like their experiences, even their flaws, are transformed into something meaningful.
I like that. Not that we should all aim to be tragic figures.
Of
haha.
course not. But it suggests that even our struggles can have ripple effects.
And that maybe growth comes from unexpected places.
Absolutely. But you know, one thing that really hits home for me is how relevant all this is today.
Oh, tell me about it. Like, Narcissus is alive and well on social media.
Right. Everyone curating their perfect image, striving for those likes.
Makes you wonder, are we all a bit narcissistic these days?
I think there's definitely that pressure to present this flawless version of ourselves.
And what about Echo? Does that play out in our tech-obsessed world, too?
Oh, totally. Think about the pressure to conform, to please everyone, to fit in.
So it's like we're bombarded with messages about how we should be.
And it's easy to lose sight of who we actually are in all that noise.
Wow, so technology is this double-edged sword, right?
Exactly. Connects us, but also amplifies these tendencies we've been talking about.
But hey, maybe that's where the myth comes in handy. Gives us a framework to understand it all.
I think so. It's a reminder to find that middle ground, you know?
Not too much Narcissus, not too much Echo.
Right. Healthy self-love and genuine connection with others.
That's the sweet spot.
It is.
Is
And
it-
it takes work, takes awareness, takes being intentional about how we live and interact.
Especially online, right?
For sure. Because at the end of the day, the online world just reflects the real one.
So those same dynamics are at play, just maybe with the bigger megaphone.
Exactly. Food for thought, wouldn't you say?
Totally. Lots to ponder here.
But hey, I'm curious, what's resonating most with you from all this?
Tough question. I think for me, it's the idea that we all have both Narcissus and Echo inside us.
Oh, interesting. In what way?
Like we all have moments of being self-absorbed, right?
Definitely. Guilty as charged sometimes.
And we all have times where we, silence our own needs to please someone else.
Ah, I see what you're saying. It's like this constant dance between the two.
Exactly. Trying to find that balance, that sweet spot of self-love and empathy.
Beautiful way to put it. It's a dance we all got to learn, for sure.
And it's not just an individual thing, right?
Yeah.
It affects how we treat each other.
Yeah.
We build relationships.
That's so true. Like, if we want a more loving, compassionate world.
You got to start with ourselves, but also recognize that we're all connected.
Absolutely. It's a collective effort, this whole human experience thing.
I love that. It's like, even though this myth is ancient,
Thousands of years old.
those needs for connection, for meaning, they're still so powerful today.
It's the power of story. Myths give us these timeless truths about being human.
And they can guide us as we, figure out our own lives.
Couldn't agree more. But hey, we've been talking a lot.
We have. Time to hear from you, our listener.
Yes. What are your thoughts on all this?
Do you see Narcissus and Echo playing out in your life and the world around you?
Hit us up on social media. Let's keep this conversation going.
And we're back. Still diving deep into Echo and Narcissus.
Like there's always another layer to uncover, isn't there?
I know, right? We've got Ovid's story, the psychology stuff. But I feel like there's this whole other angle.
Oh, I know what you mean. It's about.
It's like the search for connection, the search for meaning.
Yeah. Like this myth is almost a metaphor for that universal human need.
Totally. So where do you see that playing out in the story?
Well, look at Narcissus, right? He's so fixated on his own image.
Yeah, so self-absorbed.
He can't form real bonds with anyone,
Like he's looking for something, but
But he's looking in the wrong place.
and it's not even that he's like intentionally hurting people, right?
No, maybe sometimes.
Haha, true.
Mhm.
But it's more like he's just.
Blind to anyone else's needs.
And what about Echo? Where does she fit into this whole search for meaning thing?
I think Echo is kind of the flip side. Like,
Yeah.
she represents what happens when you lose yourself trying to connect with someone.
Ooh, interesting. Because she's so desperate for love.
Exactly. She sacrifices her voice, her identity, everything to be with Narcissus.
And in the end, they're both utterly alone.
Tragic, right?
It's like a cautionary tale.
About finding that balance,
Not too much self-focus, not too much giving yourself away.
Exactly. Healthy self-love and healthy connection with others. That's the key.
And that takes self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Knowing your own tendencies.
Absolutely. Got to know yourself to figure out how to love yourself and love others well.
It's like this constant growth process.
It is becoming the best version of you so you can show up authentically in your relationships.
Love that. But, sometimes this myth makes me kind of,
Sad.
yeah, a bit. Because it's like, are we all doomed to repeat these patterns?
Well, I don't think it's about doom and gloom.
Right.
I think it's about recognition
Recognizing what?
that these struggles aren't new. People have been dealing with this stuff for centuries.
True. Like the myth is ancient, but those longings for connection.
They're timeless, they're universal.
And it's comforting in a way, right? To know we're not alone in this.
Absolutely. We're all part of this big, messy human experience.
It makes you wonder, though, like, if Echo and Narcissus met today,
Oh, with all our technology and everything?
yeah, would their story be different? Would they have a better chance?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, technology can connect us,
True.
but it can also amplify those narcissistic and egoistic tendencies.
So it's almost like a bigger stage for the same drama.
I think so. It's all about how we use it, how we choose to engage.
Right. Gut tensionality is key.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, we've covered so much ground today.
We have, from ancient myth to modern day dilemmas.
And I gotta say, I always learn so much from these deep dives.
Me too. It's amazing how these old stories still have so much to teach us.
But for now, we gotta wrap it up.
Sad to see it end.
I know. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder.
Ooh, always love a good thought experiment.
So think about Echo and Narcissus, their tragic end.
What if you could rewrite it?
Yeah. If you could give them a happier, healthier ending.
What would that look like? What would it take for them to find healing?
That's a powerful question. It makes you think about what real growth looks like.
Absolutely. And maybe by reimagining those old patterns.
We can create a more compassionate, more fulfilling world for ourselves.
Couldn't agree more. A world where we can all be a little less Narcissus, a little less Echo.
And a lot more.
Mm,
Well, our best selves.
that's the goal, right?
It is. But for now, we'll leave you to your reflections. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring with you. Until next time.